welcome to 31 Days of Halloween Down the Red Rabbit Hole. I'm author Sophie Duffy. You may have read one of my books, D is for Death, which came out last year. It's an A to Z of death, full of stories, information and memoir, and I'm here down the red rabbit hole to talk to you about some of the weird research I did when writing it. I've also, before I start, thought you might like to meet Crow. And poor old Fred smoked in bed. It was my birthday a couple of years back when I was researching for the chapter C is for Contagion. So for my birthday treat, my partner took me for a day out to Eyam in the beautiful but sometimes bleak Peak District. Eyam is otherwise known as the Plague Village. It's a place with a remarkable past and one that we can learn from. In 1665, a tailor ordered some cloth to be sent up from London, but unbeknownst to him, it was flea infested and it brought the plague. Now, before the summer months, when instances of contagion increased, the vicar and his previous incumbent had got together to decide on an action plan in case the plague did come. And now it was here. They had to put that plan into action. They closed the church. They had held services outside in family groups. The dead were buried in unconsecrated ground where they died. No funerals. But most drastically, they persuaded the whole village to quarantine. No one was allowed to leave or enter until the plague had passed. To prevent starvation, they relied on the neighbouring area to leave food on the village edge. And as payment, the villagers left coins in vinegar-filled holes in the boundary stone. And then this is probably the saddest story. During 8 days in August 1666, poor Elizabeth Hancock of Riley Farm lost not only her husband, but 6 of her children. She had to take on the role of sexton and bury them all by herself on her land. Imagine. Out of the 350 villagers of Eyam, only 84 survived, but their self-sacrifice prevented the plague from spreading into the larger community. A pioneering effort of social distancing. If you ever get the chance, you really should visit. There's a wonderful museum which puts the time then of the plague into context with COVID-19. As for my partner, I married him, dear listener. He knows how to treat a woman on her birthday with an interest in all things deadly. This brings me to some spooky stories, some of which I included in the chapter G is for Ghosts. Although I now live in the north, I am a Devonian and grew up near Dartmoor, which is full of myths and legends and ghost stories. One of these is about Jay's grave. Back in the day, if you died by suicide, the church would not let you be buried on consecrated ground, and therefore your spirit would remain earthbound. The superstition was that if the body was buried at the edge of the parish, preferably at crossroads, the spirit would be unable to find its way back, and so would not be able to haunt anyone. Jay's grave is the grave of just such a suicide, and this is an urban legend that most Devonians will know about. Kitty Jay is said to have been a young, unmarried housemaid made pregnant by her lover, who then abandons her. In desperation, she hanged herself in the outbuilding of a nearby farm, and the body was buried at the crossroads. The body was later dug up by James Bryan, who reinterred it and set up the stones which now mark the spot on a back road not far from Maniton and Hound Tor of Hound of the Baskervilles fame. But what is spooky about the grave is that there are always fresh flowers on it. No matter what time of year, whenever you pass Jay's grave, you will always see fresh flowers, sometimes wildflowers, sometimes garden flowers. No one knows who puts them there or why. I know people who've camped out just to see if it's the fairies, but they never see anyone or anything but the flowers there. But recently a friend told me that she heard it was a couple of old sisters who did this. But even though they've now passed on, the flowers still keep coming. Now here's a true story, which I write about in Dears for Death, and it's about Edinburgh. You can't go to that city without being tripped up by ghosts. You have to dodge the dead who skulk along the cobbles of the closes. One autumn, I went with my Canadian cousin, who's a paranormal enthusiast, to hunt down these ghosts. We were in a group and we went down into the vaults below the city for an investigation, beneath the place where the gallows once stood at the Mercat Cross. We have a psychic Welshman with us, all the equipment, and in one of the damp, dimly lit cellars, the ECT goes wild and the temperature drops. Something is here. Something is happening. And whilst we sit quietly, so quietly you can hear your heartbeat, quietly, gently, the psychic talks to a spirit whose presence he can feel. He rests his hands on his knees, leans forward, and the chain around his neck falls forward with him. It swings back and forth, the pendant on the end sort of going with the movement. But then he addresses the spirit more firmly. If you are here, let us know, give us a sign. And while he's very still, the pendant on his chain moves. It swings back and forth independently. And yes, it could be a draft, but that doesn't explain how it travels along the chain to the back of his neck against gravity. Now, back in Devon, a few years after that, we've moved into an old farmhouse. The first few days, my daughter and I are there on our own, and strange things happen. I can smell soot everywhere, especially when I'm on my own. Then when I'm standing in the hall one evening, a wooden stool flies down the stairs, just missing me. Over the following week, my daughter and I both fall down the stairs. Nothing drastic, we don't hurt ourselves, but we don't trip or slip. It feels like we've been given a nudge. We're never hurt, but it is a bit spooky. So I talked to my Canadian cousin. Why can I smell soot? Did the house ever have a fire, he says. I check it out. Yes. It was virtually razed to the ground 100 years ago and then rebuilt. And it started in our kitchen because we're in the middle part of a bigger house. What are you going to do about the ghosts, he asks. There are ghosts? Of course there are ghosts. It's an old place. Should I get an exorcism? Wait. Just try talking to the ghosts. Sure, the ghosts. The next time something weird happens, if you smell soot, just tell them to go away. You live here now. So the next time I smell the soot, I tell them, go away, we live here now. And when my daughter hears a strange scratching noise in her attic bedroom, she's worried it's a mouse. But it could be a ghost, so she says, go away, I live here now. She never hears the noise again, even when we do have mice. And the smell of soot disappears. We hope the presence has gone to a place of peace. So, here is Dears for Death. I brought it with me down the red rabbit hole. And I just want to tell you that death isn't always spooky or scary. It's a natural rite of passage, which we will all go through. So keep the conversation going to banish the fear and live your life more fully. I'll briefly tell you a little bit about it, just that there's different chapters. A is for accidents, that's about sudden death. B is for bones, that's all about the body. C is for contagion. D is for disposal. E is for elegy. F is for funerals. And it goes on and on and on until we have Y is for you, and then Z is for Zaduski, which is the day, All Souls Day in some Eastern European countries. And also, while I'm here, I might as well tell you I have written 6 novels. One about a female undertaker who was born on the same day as Queen Elizabeth II. And then I also have written 2 rom-coms under the pseudonym Lizzie Lovell. So that's all we have time for today. I'd like to thank you for being here with me in this dark little hole, and to remind you that the Red Rabbit is on social media. Do subscribe, it costs you nothing. It makes a big difference to the podcast. It encourages your usual hosts, Envy Peacock and Lisa Shepherd, to continue with their mad ramblings on here. You can find my links in the show notes, so take a look at my books. And happy Halloween.